Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute phenomenon that is the time traveler's wife. We'll be tracing its wild evolution, from early sketches on brown paper to a massive global hit, and even looking ahead to where the timelines are jumping next.
So let's start with the big, heartbreaking question that hooked us all in the first place. What actually happens when love is bound by uncontrollable time travel? I mean, just imagine trying to build a normal life with someone who might literally vanish from your living room mid-sentence and drop into an entirely different decade, with zero warning. Wild, right?
This brings us to the core mechanic of the story, chrono impairment, also known as chrono displacement disorder. Now, this isn't your standard hop-in-a-DeLorean time machine setup. It's actually framed as a rare genetic disorder that makes Henry completely vulnerable. He's pulled against his will, usually toward moments of extreme stress in his life. It's a brilliant move because it grounds the sci-fi elements directly into real psychological trauma.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to cover 1. The artist and the masterpiece. 2. Themes of time and love. 3. Lost in translation, the screen. 4. Finding new life on stage. And finally, number 5, the future, Alba's story. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the artist and the masterpiece.
9 million. That is how many copies the 2003 novel sold globally. That is an absolute mountain of books. And honestly, the craziest part of the whole shebang, it wasn't backed by some corporate publishing giant. It was championed by a tiny indie publisher named Macadam/Cage. They took a massive swing on a debut author simply because they believed so fiercely in the manuscript. Talk about a bet paying off.
Audrey Niffenegger, the author, once said, "Henry is not only married to Clare, he's also married to time." And that quote really hits the nail on the head. Her genius was framing this story not just as a standard romance, but as this intense love triangle, where the ultimate rival is time itself. Henry's biggest competitor for Clare's affection isn't another person. It's the unstoppable, relentless march of time.
To really get the vibe of this book, you have to look at Niffenegger's background. She holds an MFA from Northwestern and was actually a professor of printmaking and book arts. Get this, she originally drafted her ideas for the story on brown paper, intending it to be a visual, graphic book. Her deep roots in the visual arts, plus a real penchant for the macabre and surreal, infused the novel with these dark, existential undertones. It really elevated it far beyond your standard paperback romance.
Moving right along to Section 2, themes of time and love.
In the novel, time isn't a gift. It's treated as a literal affliction and a massive metaphorical construct. Niffenegger draws heavily on allusions to Kronos, the Greek god of time. For Henry, time travel is this uncontrollable, devouring force. It isn't a fun superpower you use to go back and win the lottery. It is an agonizing reality where he is constantly confronting his own unchangeable destiny.
The story's dual first-person perspectives force us into two completely different, yet equally painful realities. Let's compare them. Henry's experience is fatalistic and involuntary. He is constantly trapped, reliving moments he absolutely cannot change. Clare, on the other hand, is trapped in a linear psychological endurance test. Her experience is defined by relentless, agonizing waiting.
There's this incredibly poignant line from Clare that sums it all up perfectly. She asks, "How does it feel? It feels like I'm always waiting." Niffenegger brilliantly roots the complex mechanics of time travel straight into deeply relatable human longing. Sure, we might not have time-traveling partners, but we all know that profound ache of waiting for someone we love.
Which brings us to Section 3, Lost in Translation, the screen.
As with any huge hit, Hollywood came knocking. But academics and researchers have highlighted how the 2009 film adaptation actively stripped away the book's philosophical nuances. They took this deep, non-linear exploration of fate, memory, and mythological allusions and basically crammed it into a simplified, linear romantic drama. The film leaned way more into the visual spectacle of time travel rather than its heavy psychological weight.
Academic journals noted that by compressing the story to fit a movie runtime, essential secondary characters like Gomez and Charisse were totally sidelined. In the book, these characters are absolutely crucial. They provide vital counterpoints to Henry and Clare and offer alternative perspectives on love and commitment. By cutting them down, the film inadvertently flattened the story's rich emotional landscape.
So you'd think television would be the answer, right? More time to let the story breathe? Well, in 2022, HBO launched a series adaptation, but it faced a pretty quick demise. It was canceled after just one season.
The reviews were mixed to say the least, landing a tough 38% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Viewership steadily dropped from 294,000 down to 223,000. Critics largely pointed to a lack of chemistry between the leads and just really uncomfortable pacing. It just goes to show how elusive Niffenegger's original magic is to capture on camera.
That leads us nicely into Section 4, Finding New Life on Stage.
Ironically enough, it took a 2023 stage musical to finally get it right. The stage adaptation breathed vibrant new life into the property by making one absolutely crucial creative decision. They dramatically shifted the narrative focus heavily onto Clare. By actively recentering the story on the wife rather than the time traveler, the stage production grounded those crazy sci-fi events in raw, relatable emotion.
And the West End's success was phenomenal. It featured an original pop/rock score by Joss Stone and Eurythmics' Dave Stewart and was driven by a fantastic female-led creative team directed by Bill Bookhurst. But the real game changer? Mind-blowing live stage illusions by Chris Fisher. They were literally making the time traveler vanish right before the audience's eyes. It's so fascinating that live theater, using practical magic and soaring music, managed to capture the authenticity and spectacular visuals of the novel way better than film ever could.
And finally, Section 5, The Future, Alba's Story. Yes, we are finally getting the long-awaited sequel, Life Out of Order, releasing in October 2026. The focus shifts entirely to Alba, Henry and Claire's daughter. Now, Alba inherited the time-traveling condition, but unlike her dad, she actually has a bit more control over her jumps.
But man, Alba's timeline is chaotic. She was born in 2001, just 6 days before 9/11. She loses her father, Henry, when she's only 5 years old. And now, in adulthood, she is navigating 2 husbands, Zach and Oliver, simultaneously. She's basically juggling the heavy grief of her past with a wildly chaotic romantic future that overlaps entirely different eras.
And Niffenegger sets all this against a decidedly dystopian backdrop. The sequel weaves in themes of climate change and political unrest. Alba seeks refuge in these fascinating cross-temporal safe havens, like the Yellow House, which is a secluded Victorian-era sanctuary in Chicago, and the Museum of Lost Souls, a digital sanctuary of forgotten memories. Through all this, we see Alba's intense struggle as a composer trying to make art in a crumbling world.
Which brings us to a final, profound question from the upcoming book, and one I'll leave you to ponder today. If the world is going to pieces, why make art? It's a gorgeous thought from Niffenegger herself. It reminds us that even in the most chaotic timelines, when everything feels like it's falling apart, human connection, love, and creation still absolutely matter. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the timelines around you.